Hello, my name is Linnell, and last week my own brother had me dragged out of the company I helped build like I was a stranger breaking in. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just stood there, holding the pieces of a life they pretended I never lived. And that's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was a plan, a clean erasure. The morning felt too bright for what waited in front of me. San Diego always had this gentle light, the kind that made glass buildings look softer, almost forgiving. But when I stepped toward the doors of Thorn Financial Trust, that softness vanished. The sunlight hit the mirrored surface, and for a second, I saw myself trapped inside it, like a reflection that didn't belong anywhere. My heels touched the stone tiles I once helped choose. I remember running my hand along the samples years ago, arguing that the color should feel warm, welcoming. Now, the warmth mocked me. I raised my badge toward the reader. The small green light I'd seen 10,000 times refused to appear. Instead, red. A sharp tone. A pause. Another tone. Red. Again. It felt like a hand pushing me back, telling me I no longer had a place here. I tried the phone app, hoping the system was glitching. Denied. The guard stepped forward. A man I didn't recognize. "Ma'am, can you step aside?" he asked, polite but firm. He didn't know me. Maybe he never had a chance to. Or maybe someone made sure of that. I stepped back, breath tightening in my chest. Behind the glass, my old team walked by in clusters. Not one paused. Not one lifted a hand. They saw me, but not really. I stood there like a misplaced shadow, a stranger wearing a familiar outline. And something cold slid through my chest. They didn't forget me. They erased me. I slipped around the corner toward the emergency stairwell, one I had insisted on installing after a fire inspection flagged insufficient exit flow. My hand pressed the metal bar. It buzzed open. The hallway beyond smelled like paper and recycled air. Familiar. Foreign. Both at once. On the second floor, a workstation sat unattended. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I hesitated, then typed my old login. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. My pulse jumped. The internal drive opened. A maze I once navigated blindfolded. There, in a folder marked Policy Updates, I found it. A document I wrote last year, the restructuring plan for branch oversight. Word for word, my strategy. The formatting, the phrasing, even the bullet spacing. But the author listed at the top, prepared by Kellyanne S., my brother's wife. My throat tightened. I touched the screen lightly, as if my fingerprint could pull my name back. I remembered the late nights drafting this policy, believing it would improve the staff's workload, help new hires adjust faster. Now someone else's name bloomed across my work like an unwanted watermark. Even my ideas were someone else's name now. Looking back, I should have sensed this months ago. I stood, walked to the office cafe, and stopped short. Two analysts, kids I mentored, looked straight at me. Their whispers floated between them like smoke. The moment I met their eyes, they dropped their gaze and drifted away. I wasn't a mentor anymore. I was a risk. On the shelf, a mug caught my eye. My initials were once etched into the ceramic, delicate, hand-painted. Now a strip of tape covered them, scribbled with someone else's title. A small thing, but small things hurt the deepest. I touched the handle, the place my thumb always rested. It felt colder, Then I remembered. My breath moved slower, like grief filling the space where pride used to be. I didn't leave. I was uninvited from my own life. As I turned toward the elevators, a receptionist lifted the phone, glancing at me with uncertainty. Yes, she's here, but her badge didn't scan. Her voice trailed off as the doors at the end of the hall slid open. A familiar figure stepped out. Broad shoulders, expensive suit, confident stride. My brother. That's where everything began to shift. I didn't know what was waiting for me next. My brother's silhouette cut through the hallway before I even heard his voice. Something inside me tightened, the way muscles brace before you realize you're afraid. I hadn't planned what to say. I only knew I needed answers I thought he'd offer, if there was still any piece of the boy I grew up with left in him. But the moment he stepped into the lobby, I saw it in his eyes. Whatever softness once lived there had been replaced with something colder, practiced, almost rehearsed. The overhead lights hit the marble floor in sharp angles. The whole lobby felt too bright, too clean, as if the building were trying to blind me into believing nothing was wrong. Thorne stopped a few feet away, the distance intentional, like he didn't want to be contaminated by my presence. "You're trespassing, Linnell," he said, each word clipped. "You've already been removed from the board." His tone wasn't confused. It wasn't worried. It was final, like a judge reading a sentence. I kept my voice even. "I'm here to ask why. Just tell me why." He laughed through his nose, a sharp sound meant to cut. "You're destroying the bank's image. And this." His hand swept over me like I was a stain. "This is pathetic." The words hit with a precision only family knows how to wield. My jaw tightened. There was a flicker of heat behind my ears, a pulse I struggled to steady. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. Silence, I realized, unsettles a liar more than anger ever could. He shifted, irritated. His attention flicked toward the branch manager, hovering nearby. "Remove her," Thorne said. "Now. I don't care how." The manager froze. Two security guards approached, cautiously, like stepping near something fragile but inconvenient. I didn't move. I refused to give them the dramatic scene Thorne desperately wanted. Then I heard a voice behind me, a younger male voice, hesitant. "Ma'am, I need you to leave. Please." I turned. Evan, the intern who once looked at me like I hung the moon in his training sessions. His eyes didn't meet mine. They stayed on the floor. The betrayal wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was in the way he carried himself, torn between the man giving orders and the woman who had taught him everything. I stepped back, only once. Enough to show I wasn't going to fight them physically. Enough to show I still had dignity left. The security guards relaxed, sensing I wouldn't resist. That made it all worse somehow. Behind the reception desk, someone whispered, "She's not supposed to be here." Another replied, "I heard she caused trouble." Rumors travel faster than truth, especially when fueled by power. Then it happened. A black trash bag, thin plastic, the kind used for break room bins, was tossed onto the floor near my feet. Inside were my things. The leather briefcase I carried every day for 15 years, the mug with the initials that once meant something, the frame holding a picture of a life I once believed would last. The bag hit the ground with a dull thud. Not loud, not dramatic, but enough to split something inside me. I didn't reach for it immediately. I stared at it, the way it slumped, the way it made my life look disposable. That's everything I was to them. I whispered to myself. One bag. Dumped. People walked by, pretending not to see, pretending this was normal, pretending I wasn't someone who had built half the systems they used daily. Shame has a way of filling a room even when no one speaks it aloud. I finally bent down, took the bag by its knot, and lifted it. The weight wasn't heavy. That made it hurt more. As I turned toward the exit, the lobby fell into an uncomfortable hush. Not respect, not sympathy, just avoidance. People will ignore the fall of someone they fear might remind them of their own future. I walked out with my spine straight, holding the bag at my side, not dragging it. I wouldn't let Thorne have the image he wanted of me broken, begging, apologizing. They'll remember this moment. I told myself, I won't let them forget. The glass doors slid open, letting in a rush of warm air. For a second, the sunlight stung my eyes. Or maybe it was the truth. My phone buzzed. A private message from Rowena. They planned this weeks ago. I'm sorry. I didn't cry. I wouldn't give them that piece of me. I moved toward my car, gripping the trash bag, loosely feeling the outline of the photo frame inside, the one that used to sit on my desk, waiting for me each morning. I didn't realize it then, but that moment changed everything. I didn't know what was waiting for me next. I turned the key in the ignition and let the engine hum, but I didn't pull away. The trash bag sat on the passenger seat, like a silent verdict. I could see the frame through the plastic, a photo of me, Thorne, and our mother from years ago, back when smiles weren't calculated. My hand hovered over it, but I didn't open the bag. I wasn't ready to see myself like that, displaced and disposable. Instead of driving home, I turned left down the winding road that led to the upper level of the bank, the part open to the public, where they displayed their pride in glossy frames. The legacy wall. I hadn't been there since they unveiled it. The lobby's upper corridor was too quiet. Even my steps felt out of place, like an echo in a church I no longer belonged to. Rows of portraits lined the wall, founders, partners, chairs. There was Gideon, the former chairman, Thorne beside him, and a 10-year group photo, the one I remembered taking after that brutal expansion year. I moved closer. My eyes scanned for the familiar, my own face, my own smile. But the photo had been cropped, trimmed neatly at the edge where I used to stand. There was a blankness there, filled with nothing. They didn't even bother to patch it, just left a breath of space where I used to be. It's not that they forgot me. They wanted others to believe I was never here. My fingers grazed the glass. It felt cold, unforgiving. I remembered how I'd fought to keep this company human, how I'd argued for family leave policies, ethical lending practices, even open-door Fridays. I gave pieces of my soul to this place, and now they'd scrape my face off the walls like dried paint. I walked past the boardroom, past the atrium where they now hosted client brunches. When I reached my old office, I stopped. The door was open. Inside, Kellyanne sat behind my desk. No, not mine anymore. She was laughing softly, flipping through documents with a junior associate. Her voice carried that same sing-song tone she always used when trying to sound warm. But I knew that voice. It was the same one she used the night she told me loyalty means not asking questions you don't want answered. On the desk, I saw it, the crystal paperweight Thorne gave me after my first year as COO. The same one I left on that desk when I walked out to care for our mother. Beside it sat her new nameplate. My degrees were gone. In their place hung photos of Callie at PR awards, shaking hands, holding oversized checks for charity. She looked up, saw me. Her smile didn't falter. "Sister-in-law," she said sweetly, "you should know when it's time to move on." I didn't reply. My eyes weren't on her. They were on the chair. That chair supported every 3 a.m. spreadsheet, every tears in the bathroom lunch break. I endured to keep this place alive. That chair knew me better than she ever would. And now it held someone who helped erase me. I turned and left without a word. I wasn't there for confrontation. Not yet. But I needed to see how deep the damage went. I needed to trace every place my name had been replaced. Driving to my mother's condo felt like walking through fog. Not because I was unsure, but because I already knew what I'd find. Her place hadn't changed. Same lemon-scented cleaner. Same lace-trimmed pillows. And on the mantel, a new family photo taken recently. Thorne, Callie, and Serilda, arms wrapped around each other, all in soft pastels. Callie was wearing the pendant. My pendant. I'd given it to our mother for her 60th birthday. It had my initials engraved on the back. LGH. A custom piece. A private gift. And now it dangled from Callie's neck, glowing under warm lights. The caption underneath on the photo frame read, "Gifted by my amazing daughter-in-law." My throat tightened. I didn't cry. I didn't even touch the frame. They didn't just steal my place. They recycled my love. In that moment, something shifted. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. It was something quieter, deeper, grief wearing the mask of understanding. This wasn't about one office or one mug or one photo. It was about every inch of space I'd once occupied, now claimed by someone who had never built anything. I gave them everything I had, and now they act like I was never real. I walked out before anyone could say anything. I didn't want explanations. I didn't want apologies. I wanted the truth, and I wanted it documented. That night, as I sat in the dark living room of my apartment, my phone buzzed again. A voice message from Rowena. "You need to see what's in the compliance folder. It's about your name being removed from archival records." My fingers hovered over the screen before I tapped the mic. "Send it," I whispered. "All of it." Rowena's voice still echoed faintly in my ears as I sat there, the apartment lit only by the street lamp bleeding through the blinds. Her message played like a warning and a confession rolled into one. The truth was crawling toward me from every direction. And for the first time since this all began, I wasn't scared of it. I just needed to confirm how deep the rot went. Before my courage could thin out, I pressed the call button for my mother. The line rang twice. Then her voice, cheerful, airy, weightless in a way that made my chest ache. "Sweetheart, I can't talk long. I'm at my nail appointment." The clinking of metal tools sounded behind her. "What's going on? Why are you stirring things up again?" The way she said it, like I was a child knocking things over on purpose, made my stomach twist. I swallowed, forced my voice into something steady. "They dragged me out of the building, Mom. In front of everyone." There was a pause, long enough to squeeze the air out of me. "Well," she said finally, "you embarrassed your brother. He had to make a choice." Her words slipped under my skin like a cold knife. Not because they surprised me, but because they confirmed what I'd been afraid to admit. She wasn't neutral. She wasn't confused. She'd chosen her side. My hand tightened around the phone until a soft crack sounded in my wrist. I said nothing. It didn't matter anymore. Looking back, I should have known she'd say that. I hung up before she could continue talking about brunch or charity events or whatever distraction she used to avoid uncomfortable truths. I stared at my reflection in the dark TV screen. The woman looking back wasn't the same one who entered that lobby this morning. There was a tiredness, but also a clarity. I opened the drawer beside me and pulled out my old project notebook. The leather cover was scuffed from years of being shoved into briefcases. I flipped through the pages until I reached the one dated 3 winters ago. The hospital, the papers, Thorne's voice saying, "It's just temporary guardianship. Mom trusts you more than anyone. We just need your signature so we can manage things while she recovers." The fluorescent lights in that hospital corridor had buzzed above me. I was exhausted, scared for her, too emotional to think. My hand had trembled as I signed page after page. I trusted him in that moment more than I trusted myself. Now, staring at the dotted signature line, the memory sharpened like broken glass. It wasn't just temporary guardianship. It was power of attorney. And buried on page 3, fine print I didn't see, was the clause that let him reallocate influence and shares under emergency reorganization protocol. I never read page 3 because I trusted them. I felt the breath leave my lungs in one long, slow exhale. My own signature glared up at me like evidence from a crime I didn't know I'd committed. They didn't even need to forge it. I handed them the sword. The shame hit first, then the anger, then something heavier than both, responsibility. Not guilt, but the weight of understanding. I couldn't undo that day, but I could decide what came next. I picked up my phone and called Rowena. She answered immediately, voice nervous. "Did you see it?" "I need the digital copy," I said. "Every page, every signature. I want to see exactly what else I signed away." I heard her swallow. "Okay, I'll send it tonight." I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the truth settle. It didn't hurt the way I expected. It stung, yes, but beneath the sting was something steadier, resolve growing roots. The documents weren't the end. They were the roadmap. I didn't realize it then, but this was where the tide began to turn. An hour later, another notification lit my screen. Rowena again, this time her voice shaking. "There's a clause," she said, "that links your signature to the erasure of founding records. They used it to remove your name." My heartbeat didn't spike. My breath didn't speed. The calmness surprised me. "Good," I whispered. "That means we now know where to start cutting." I set my phone down, opened my laptop, and pulled up every file I'd saved over the past decade. My hands didn't shake this time. My eyes didn't blur. They were steady, sharp. The truth wasn't a threat anymore. It was ammunition. I didn't know what was waiting for me next. But for the first time since this all began, I felt ready. Before I hit send, I needed to remember who I was before the boardroom doors slammed, before the mug vanished, before my name became a rumor. I needed to remember the clients I fought for, the nights I stayed late rewriting policy so my team could breathe easier. I needed to hear that someone, somewhere, still said my name like it meant something. I parked outside a modest cafe tucked behind a gas station. a place where I used to meet one of our oldest clients. I tapped the voicemail and let it play again. Hi, is Linnell still with your team? I'd like her to handle our account again. His voice was kind, familiar, full of trust. I played it twice more, my fingers clenching tighter around the steering wheel each time. A second file auto-played. Rowena had forwarded it from a call center, recording one she'd risked her job to send me. She's no longer with the company, a rep said. She was dismissed for misconduct. Misconduct! That word struck sharper than any insult Thorne had ever thrown. I closed my eyes, but the weight behind them didn't break loose. Instead, my breath caught in my chest, where betrayal doesn't scream. It sinks. They didn't just delete me. They rewrote me. I sat for long while listening to the hum of the parking lot around me. Somewhere inside, coffee brewed and laughter floated through the glass. But I didn't go in. I turned back toward the office. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted to see, to measure what was left of me in the place that used to bear my fingerprints. I entered quietly. No badge, no announcement. I didn't need permission to see what used to be mine. The lobby had the same artificial calm. Everything looked untouched, staged, as if nothing had happened, as if my fall had been scrubbed clean before anyone could remember it. Then I saw him, Evan. He used to bring me black coffee with exactly 1 sugar. He'd sit at the corner of my desk and ask how I handled impossible clients. He once told me, "You're the reason I stayed." Now, he stood near the front desk in a crisp suit that didn't quite fit his posture. He glanced up, froze, then turned to the guard. "She's not authorized," he said. "You need to call upper-level HR if she lingers." He didn't even look at me. Not once. I didn't speak. I just watched him, and something settled in my stomach. Not sadness, but clarity. You learned from me, and now you're using those tools to bury me. I stepped back, turned around, and left. As I reached the sidewalk, my phone vibrated again. Another message from Rowena. "They're scrubbing internal files. Your name's disappearing from more places, even onboarding records." I called her. She picked up immediately, voice low. "I know I should help more," she said, "but I'm scared, Linnell. They fired someone last month just for saying your name in a meeting." I didn't respond right away. I could hear her breathing, fast and uneven, like she was waiting for me to be angry. "I'm not asking you to take a bullet," I said softly. "I'm asking you to hold the receipts. Just keep the files safe." She didn't answer for a second. "I will," she whispered. "You're not alone. I just can't be loud." "You don't have to be," I replied. "You're the last thread connecting me to the truth." We hung up. I went home. I pulled the old external drive from my desk drawer, the one I used to back up everything. Years of proposals, models, drafts, everything with my name embedded in the metadata. I opened folder after folder, and then I saw it. My name wasn't there. Every document I had originated, every presentation, every policy, it all showed new authorship. Last modified by Calliane S. or T. Harrington. They didn't just cut me from the picture. They redrew it entirely. I leaned forward, elbows on my desk, and stared at the screen. This time, they'll have to look me in the eye while they lie. I opened my email, typed a single sentence to Aviel. "I'm ready. Let's begin the audit." But I didn't hit send. Not yet. I clicked Save Draft, closed the laptop, let the dark room hold me in silence for one more hour. Because before striking, I wanted to see one more thing. I didn't sleep. Not really. My eyes closed, but my mind kept replaying signatures, voices, missing files. By dawn, the apartment felt too tight, like the walls had drawn closer overnight. I needed air, space big enough to steady myself before I moved forward. So I drove until the city thinned and the harbor opened up in front of me. The fog rested low over the water, softening everything it touched. I sat on a cold park bench, the wool coat wrapped around me like an old memory. I used to wear it on early site visits when the company was expanding, back when people still said my name in meetings without lowering their voice. They think I'm gone, but they never saw what I kept. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the name I'd hovered over for hours. Avielle, the only person who didn't pretend they couldn't hear me. My thumb lingered above the call button. For a moment, I wondered if I was doing the right thing, if I was ready for whatever came next. Then I pressed it before doubt could steal the moment. She answered on the second ring. I heard, she said softly. I've been hearing everything. People talk more than they realize. Her voice carried something gentle, concern, not pity. Pity would have broken me. But I needed you to say it out loud first, she added. I needed to know you were ready. I stared out at the harbor, where the fog moved like breath. They took my name off the founding files. I said, they scrubbed my work. They stole my mother's pendant and handed it to someone else like it meant nothing. My voice cracked, but I kept going. They took my dignity, Avielle, piece by piece. I don't want revenge. I want a record that I existed. There was a long quiet between us. Then she exhaled. Then we go through the system, she said. You have one card left, and it's in my drawer. My fingers went still. What drawer? You'll see, she replied. Come in when you're ready. Looking back, I should have known she wouldn't say more over the phone. The drive to her office felt shorter than usual. Maybe because I wasn't afraid anymore. Maybe because fear had finally burned itself out. Her office was dim, quiet, untouched by the chaos that usually swallowed corporate hallways. She closed the door behind us, walked to a locked cabinet, and pulled out a manila folder so old the edges were soft. Hand-marked in fading ink. Thorn Legacy, 1999. She placed it on the desk like it was something sacred. This, she said, is the one thing they never managed to bury. Inside the folder was a single letter, handwritten, the ink slightly smudged in places. Gideon's handwriting. The old chairman, the man who had believed in building systems, not empires. To whom it may concern, she read aloud. If this company still stands in 20 years, thank Linnell for the systems that held it together. My breath caught. For a moment, the room blurred, not from hurt, but from validation I hadn't felt in years. I placed my hand on the letter, not to claim it, but to thank the person who wrote it. My fingertips tingled against the paper, like recognition was flowing from the past into the present. I didn't need applause, but I deserved to not be erased. Avielle watched me, her expression unreadable but warm. We file this with the Ethics Review Board, she said, along with the metadata you saved, the documents Rowena forwarded, and the signatures from that hospital day. We open a historical audit. And Thorn, I asked. her lips pressed into a thin line. We'll let the paper speak first. If he still talks louder than truth, she paused, meeting my eyes. We'll speak louder than him. Hope didn't rush through me. It settled gently, like a blanket laid over cold skin. When I left her office, the sunlight hit the glass just right. My reflection stared back, still me, but steadier. Not broken, not furious, just centered. I walked past the lobby without looking over my shoulder. The world felt different, not kinder, but clearer. Outside, the air tasted like the start of something honest. I pulled out my phone and dialed another number, one I hadn't used since the day everything shifted years ago. The line rang once, twice. Then, "Linnell, I didn't think I'd ever hear from you again." And the path ahead opened. "I'm still on the board, technically." His voice rasped, thick with hesitation. "But I don't know how much longer." "That's long enough," I said. "I need you in the room today." There was a pause, one that felt like it held all the years between us. Then he answered, quiet but steady. "You have me. What are we doing, Linnell?" "We're showing them who really built the spine of this bank." The call ended. The fog lifted. And for the first time in years, I walked back toward the place they had thrown me out of. This time not alone. Two black sedans turned slowly into the private lot behind me. I didn't need to check the mirror. I knew who was inside. Aviel stepped out first, sharp in a navy coat, carrying the file labeled Legacy Discrepancy Review, Immediate Action Required. Behind her, an HR compliance officer I hadn't met before followed with a briefcase in hand. I walked in behind them. No more side entrances. No more back stairs. We moved through the front doors like we belonged there, because we did. Security glanced up, then looked down again. Nobody stopped us. Nobody asked for a badge. The hush that fell as we entered was almost reverent, or maybe it was fear. Either way, the silence spoke louder than the marble floors beneath our shoes. We took the elevator to the top floor, the same floor where Thorne once had me removed like an intruder, the same floor where I had once sat in leadership meetings, shaping policy, shaping people. The doors opened. The air changed. People paused mid-conversation, coffee cups held in midair. Phones slowly lowered. I stepped onto the executive floor without hesitation. No one said hello, but no one blocked our path. Aviel took the lead. "We are here to begin an ethics investigation under Article 5.2, she announced clearly, her voice sliced through the quiet. "This includes historical credit, contribution redactions, and executive-level misconduct." Her tone didn't waver. Not once. And still, no one moved. Then, from his corner office, the door opened. Thorne emerged. His expression was tight, practiced. His suit, perfect, as always, did nothing to soften the narrowing of his eyes. The smile he gave me was more sneer than sincerity. "Linnell," he said, "this is unnecessary. You always did have a flair for dramatics." I met his gaze and didn't blink. "And you always did have a talent for theft." I said evenly, "Let's see how you manage under sunlight." The air didn't shift. It fractured. People turned. A few looked at the floor, some at their screens. One woman, new, maybe a junior associate, whispered to her colleague, and then fell quiet when I caught her eye. But there were others too, those who nodded almost imperceptibly. People who once couldn't risk being seen with me, now watching like they needed this moment to happen. This wasn't a crowd of enemies anymore. It was a floor waiting to see who wins. The HR compliance officer stepped forward. "Mr. Harrington," he said, "we'd like you to come with us. Conference room B." Thorne's jaw worked behind the tight smile. Now. He didn't protest. He didn't have to. The power he once held had already started to dissolve the second I walked in, and no one stopped me. He turned and walked, slower than usual, like his shoes had picked up weight. I watched him pass, my arms crossed, not in defiance, but control. As he turned the corner, I caught my reflection in the dark glass near the elevator. Not angry, not broken, just ready. That's where it all started. I didn't know what was waiting for me next. Conference room smelled of pine cleaner and old paper. The glass walls caught every beam of midday sun, as if the room itself demanded honesty. No one sat yet. The board filed in slowly, exchanging glances, not greetings. The last to enter was Thorne. He straightened his cuffs before taking the seat at the far end, the one with the better view. Of course. Avielle placed the manila folder in the center of the table. "Before we begin," she said, voice steady, "we're reading into the record an original letter dated July 1999, authored by Chairman Gideon Merrow." No one moved. The HR officer cleared his throat and began. "To whom it may concern. If this company still stands in 20 years, thank Linnell for the systems that held it together." A silence spread that couldn't be filled with noise. It was the kind that presses on your chest and makes you remember everything you pretended to forget. I didn't speak. I didn't need to, because for once, the truth was doing the talking. The officer continued. "We've reviewed metadata from archived internal documents, including timestamps, authorship logs, and deletion records." He flipped a page. Ms. Harrington's name was removed from founding and contribution documentation without formal process, board vote, or transparency. Additional records show her authored materials, financial models, strategic blueprints, were reattributed to Mr. Thorne Harrington and Ms. Callie-Ann Harrington over a span of 8 months. More silence. Then, we've also received multiple anonymized witness statements confirming an internal effort to phase out Ms. Harrington's presence from organizational memory. I could feel every chair in the room shift slightly. No one knew where to look. Then Thorne leaned forward, palms pressed together. "She left," he said, his voice calm. "She abandoned the role. I just adapted. The bank couldn't afford a power vacuum. Someone had to lead." He was good, still polished, still rehearsed. I folded my hands in front of me. I stepped away to care for our mother. I said, "For the record," and I had every intention of returning. There were emails, memos, transition plans. You built your kingdom from my silence. Thorne, don't pretend it was an accident. His jaw twitched. Avielle didn't flinch. The board chair, an older man who'd once voted to promote me, adjusted his glasses and spoke for the first time. "Effective immediately, Mr. Harrington is suspended pending further legal review. A formal investigation into leadership misconduct, contribution erasure, and reputational manipulation will begin today." No one applauded. That wasn't what this was. Security entered the room, quiet and precise. Thorne stood stiffly, but he didn't argue. He didn't yell. Because he knew. Because even thieves recognize when the lock clicks from the inside. As he walked past me, our eyes met. His expression was unreadable, but I didn't look away. This time, I didn't lower my gaze. This time, I was the one still standing. And Callieanne, she didn't show up. Her silence was the loudest thing in the room. I stayed behind as everyone cleared out. I needed one more moment to feel the weight of it. The weight of justice, not revenge. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just stayed. And the truth walked in behind me. As I left the room, I didn't look back, but I felt it shifting behind me. The floor that once froze me out now thawed in quiet acknowledgement. One by one, people stood, not clapping, not performing, just standing. Their eyes met mine, and in their silence, there was something heavy and right. Respect. Outside, the wind had changed. Avielle was waiting. "You could take the chair," she said, "if you wanted." I looked at the sky. "No," I said. "I just needed to make sure the chair didn't own me." That's where it all ended, and where something else began. A week later, the world didn't look different, but I did. The sky still rolled in over the bay the same way. The streets still smelled like coffee and city dust in the morning. And yet, something in me had shifted, like I'd been walking with a splinter for years and hadn't noticed until it was finally gone. I sat at my own desk, not the one they'd taken, not the sleek glass one buried in that sterile office. This one was wood, worn and warm, found at a garage sale 10 years ago and dragged up 3 flights of stairs by hand. It never matched the furniture at Thorne Financial. That's probably why I liked it. Above it hung Gideon's letter, now framed. I didn't center it perfectly. I didn't need to. Perfection wasn't the point anymore. And in the bottom drawer, tucked, not displayed, was the black trash bag they'd once thrown at my feet. Not because I needed to keep it, but because it reminded me how far I'd come from letting anyone decide where I belonged. That's where it all started. The phone buzzed across the desk. I didn't rush to check it. I finished the sentence I was typing before I flipped it over. A text from my mother. "Your brother's moving to Arizona. Says he needs time. You got what you wanted. So what do you want now?" I read it once, twice, a third time. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, because I had nothing left to explain. I didn't want revenge. I wanted the space to live without being erased. Later that afternoon, I met Avielle for lunch at a corner cafe with plastic tablecloths and bad overhead lighting. The coffee was lukewarm, but it didn't matter. She didn't ask how I was. She just slid a napkin across the table and smiled. "People still talk about what you did," she said. I tore a piece of bread slowly in my hands. "Let them," I said. "The truth doesn't need defending every day." We laughed. A light won, unforced, the kind that lives in the belly, not just the throat. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I owed anyone a performance. Back home, I opened my laptop, created a folder, named it Legacy Mine. I didn't open a lawsuit template. I didn't start a memoir. I opened a blank document, and I wrote a letter to the girl I used to be, the one who thought love would protect her from ambition, the one who thought loyalty would earn her safety, the one who didn't yet know how people rewrite history when you give them a quiet exit. "You didn't lose," I wrote. "You outlived the lie." I signed it, closed the file, saved it. Then I did something small, but sacred. I walked down to a local nonprofit, a center that helps women transition after leaving corporate jobs, often abruptly, often painfully. I handed the director a sealed envelope. Inside was everything: the full case, the evidence, the resignation, the redemption. If someone walks in and says, "I think I'm being erased," you'll know what to do. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Walking out into the afternoon light, I felt the weight drop from my shoulders, not all at once, but in increments, the kind you don't notice until your feet start moving lighter. No badge, no title, just my name and my peace. I didn't get my old life back. I got something better, a life that's only mine. They tried to erase me, my name, my work, my worth. But the truth has a quiet way of waiting and rising. Maybe the question isn't who stole your seat, but what will you build when no one can take your name from you again? If this story moved you, leave a comment below and don't forget to subscribe. More true, powerful stories are coming.